I'm a professor of biology. I work particularly on wildlife conservation. Much of my work is in the UK, but I also work in Ecuador and Zambia and other places, basically trying to find solutions to the issues that bats and other wildlife are facing in the modern world. So we were working on greater horseshoe bats, which are absolutely gorgeous bats. They will sort of fit in the palm of your hand. I guess they're about a similar size to a golden hamster, and they're quite threatened across Europe. Though, as it happens in Britain, they're one of our bat species that are doing better than most just now. Um, and what we did is we attached little radio transmitters to their back. So we go to a cave, we set up a system for trapping them as they emerge from the cave. We use a thing that's called a harp trap, which, as the name suggests, looks a bit like a harp. It's a square frame and it's got vertical strings made out of plastic fishing line. And these strings and they slide down into a collecting bag at the bottom. So then we can retrieve them, and what we do then is we have this tiny radio receiver that's only 0.6 of a gram, so it's really tiny. It's smaller than a fingernail, and we take some special glue that's not harmful to the bats, and we just literally stick the radio tag on the back of the bat. Gosh, that's hard to say. And then once the glue is dry, we release the bat and it goes off and does yeah, all its nightly things that bats do. So they'll kind of take the easy option for a while and they'll just hang upside down from a tree, just listening, echolocating, waiting for the echoes to come back. And when they detect that a moth or a beetle is flying by, they'll drop down onto it, because that's really energy efficient, right? Because you're basically sitting there waiting for your takeaway meal to just go past you, and then you just drop right down onto it. So one of the things that's been fun for me with working with a mathematician is trying to look at problems the opposite way round from how I would normally do it. So normally I would follow bats around in the landscape and then try and deduce afterwards, okay, what are they doing? How are they behaving? Whereas working with Thomas, we've kind of done this the opposite way round, where he comes up with some basic theoretical principles of saying, hey, well, I think the bats might behave like this. They might just disperse randomly away from the roost, or they might keep going for a certain amount of time and then they'll turn back. Or in the case of leapfrogging, maybe what they're doing is kind of going step by step by step until eventually they'll get to a point where there aren't very many other bats around them, at which point then they decide that they're going to start coming back again. I think what they're doing is they're going a certain distance until they realize that there don't seem to be any other bats around them, or at least this is what fits our observations best. We're not quite sure how they do that, whether it's by actually listening out for the calls of other animals in the environment. It might be that that's what they're doing. Um, and then gradually they will try to find their way back home to base. So basically, you're always at a position where you're not a whole lot further away from home than everybody else that you know. So one of the questions we get asked all the time is, how big an area do these bats need in order to be protected? You know, how much food do they actually need? Is it just that we need to preserve their roost? And that generally has been the approach up till now. People have just said, oh, well, this is where they live, so we'll protect that. And over recent years, we've been saying, well, you don't need just a place to live, you also need a place where you're going to eat. And then the $1 million question is, okay, well, how far is that? Because these can, you know, potentially that could be covering a very wide area indeed. So one of the things we've been able to do with this work is to define better how much area the bats actually need to make sure they've got enough food and resources available to them. Well, I think particularly in terms of bats, my aha moment was just literally going out on a bat walk with somebody who said, we know so little about these animals. They're really, really important for our environment. They eat insects, they disperse seed, they pollinate flowers. I just thought, this is just amazing. There's all these animals out there that I know nothing about. They're out at night when I'm asleep. And it felt like there was a real opportunity to make a difference, to actually find out something that could help conservation and also help people. And that was really a turning point for me.